Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel for all you guys returning, and welcome to the channel for all you new guys. I'm Shooter. So recently, unlike the last video, I decided to just make up a versus battle instead of letting y'all pick. And the versus battle I came up with for today's video was the Thunderjaw from Horizon Zero Dawn versus the Tek Rex from Ark Survival Evolved. Now, something I want to say is, the Tek Rex is not stronger in lore than, like, a normal, just Rex. So, there's the only reason I'm picking the Tek Rex specifically for this video is for aesthetic reasons. Because, you know, both of them are, like, robot Tyrannosaurus. But, you know, anyway, yeah, I just thought it was cool. So, yeah. And, for once, one of my videos is actually going to be a somewhat fair matchup, unlike literally all of my scaling videos in the past. So, with my yapping out of the way, let's get into the video. I'm going to start off with the Rex. In terms of attack potency, by upscaling off of the Managarmer's Frost Breath abilities, put the Rex in the Arc Rex in the large building plus ranges, as the Managarmer outputs are 10.7 tons of TNT, and obviously the Rex upscales that, which is large building plus. Oh yeah, and also shout out to my friend Castova. I'm pretty sure his YouTube name is like Draken. So yeah, shout out to my bro for helping me with Rex scaling for this video. Overall, I'm pretty sure this level of scaling for the Rex is like pretty consistent, as like it can survive lightning shots from lightning wyverns, which are also like large building plus, as well as like massively upscale like the Doedicurus, which is small building level. It upscales like via size alone. It gets into the large building ranges, and like comparing it to a real life Tyrannosaurus Rex and like scaling up the real life Rex's power to the size of the Arc Rex also gets it in those like large building plus ranges. So like large building plus and like large building level for the Rex is pretty consistent for it. For like its attack potency, in terms of speed, it's slower than the Arc player, and with its base speed. Now, I don't really know exactly how fast the base human is in Ark, but I think it would be fair to say that the Rex is that the player character in Ark is faster than any real-life human, as obviously the Ark player, even in base, is much stronger than your average human, like way stronger. So, like, them, I don't know the exact speed of the human character in Ark. However, I would say that they would be, like, in those kind of peak human kind of speed ranges, and the Rex is slower than that, is slower than the base human character. So in terms of running speed, I would say the Rex is probably just around base human level, maybe a little faster, potentially like athletic human level. However, like either way, it's not really all that fast when it comes to travel speed. But in terms of reaction time, if you want to say that it can react to the lightning wyvern's lightning blasts, then that would give it like massively hypersonic reaction time and combat speed, which obviously is really good. And like if you want to say it can react to tech weapons, obviously one of those is a literal laser, so you can just argue it to be FTL. If you want to say it can only sorta react to the tech weaponry, then it would still be LS, like relativistic plus or LS. So yeah, either way, in terms of reaction time, it's really, really freaking fast. So yeah. overall, the Arc Rex, in terms of overall power, is pretty dang strong. In terms of lifting strength via sheer size, I don't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure it's in the, like, Class K ranges in terms of lifting strength. So it's pretty dang strong, actually, in terms of the lifting strength department. And obviously, because of that, it has the lifting strength necessary to pick up and throw its opponent today. As obviously, the Thunderjaw is not, like, I mean, it's a really heavy creature, but it ain't that heavy. It ain't that heavy. So, so long as the Thunderjaw doesn't massively outclass the Arc Rex in terms of lifting strength, the Arc Rex could potentially pick it up and throw it, like, really, really far. Overall, for Arc Rex scaling, that's about all I got, though. In terms of speed, it's garbage in terms of travel speed, but in terms of reaction time, it is absurdly fast. Attack potency and durability wise, it is in those, like, large building plus ranges, around 10.7 metric tons, or tons of TNT, sorry. And in terms of lifting strength, it's in those kind of, like, Class K ranges. But how does its opponent, the Thunderjaw, compare? And obviously, the Thunderjaw upscales the player character in Horizon. Aloy, I'm pretty sure her name is. In terms of weaponry that you can use in the game, there's a pretty big selection across the two different games. You can use all types of different explosives and all kinds of different weapons. The explosives that you can use on the creatures in the game, like the Thunderjaw, typically, in terms of power, range from, like, small building plus to large building level in terms of overall AP. And obviously, for these to do any form of actually good damage to things like the Thunderjaw, it has to hit the Thunderjaw's weak points rather than its actual body armor and, like, its actual strong parts of its body. So weak points of the Thunderjaw can endure small building plus to large building level explosions. Via size, the Thunderjaw also has, like, large building, just scaling just because of how large it is. Again, upscaling it off of real life Tyrannosaurus Rex, and then also bumping that up because it's a super futuristic and technologically advanced. In terms of some other weapons, you have things like I don't remember what it's called. It's the Storm Slinger, I think the weapon's called, which basically just shoots lightning and electric bolts. Assuming these bolts are as strong as literal lightning bolts, then this would range from large building plus to multi-city block level, which you can argue it to be in that range if they are lightning bolts, because it can be charged up to like different, like, kind of ranges of power. Like, the longer you charge the weapon, the more damage it deals. So yeah, you can kind of scale it to either. I don't really care which one you scale it to. So yeah, large building level for it is also kind of consistent, is also pretty consistent, and you can argue it to be higher if you want to argue it to be higher. And obviously it's armor, like the armored parts of its body and parts of its body that aren't weak points, that take increased damage, are obviously way more durable and take way less damage from this. So in terms of durability, it varies from part to part of its body. Some weak points would be are much weaker than its armored, more resistant parts of its body. So how durable it is depends on where the Arc Rex hits it. However, considering the fact that they'll be facing each other, most of its weak points should be hidden from the Arc Rex, and it should be able to hide them from the Arc Rex. So these weak points, while yes, something that Arc Rex could technically exploit, isn't going to be something it really knows about. So I don't really think it matters that much. If the Arc Rex is smart enough to figure out the creature has weak points, then obviously the Thunderjaw is going to run into some issues, but I don't think it's that smart, really, well, it's kind of old. They're pretty old, so maybe it would be able to figure that out, but I doubt it, seeing as it's never going to encounter anything in Arc that is like that, so I personally doubt it, but, think what you want to, I guess. So, weak points of its body, would be, like, in terms of, like, durability, would be like building plus to large building plus in terms of durability, and the more armored parts of its body would either just be deeper into large building plus or in the like low city block level ranges, which isn't really too crazy to say considering that scaling for the Storm Slinger weapon can get to the multi-city block plus ranges. So yeah. Continuing on with this creature's durability, if you want to take the name the Storm Slinger very literally and say that it's the energy blast that it outputs have the energy of a storm, then this would make the Thunderjaw, like, unironically, like, country level. However, I would doubt that this is the actual power of the weapon. So, that's kind of like wank for it. I don't really like that scaling. But if you want to wank it, I guess you could do that. I'm not going to for this video, though. In terms of speed, the Thunderjaws are pretty slow, usually. However, when they want to move quickly, they can move very, very quickly. In terms of travel speed, they find themselves in those kind of like high superhuman plus ranges when they actually want to move fast based on showings in the game based off of their like huge size. Unlike the Arc Rex, they aren't shown as like this lumbering, slow moving creature. Despite being like actually bigger than the Arc Rex, they're shown to be very fast and quite agile in the game. So yeah, Thunderjaws, in terms of speed, are actually surprisingly quick on their feet. In terms of reaction time, if you want to say that it can react to weapons like the Storm Slinger, which are just electrical bolts and lightning bolts, this would give the Thunderjaw massively hypersonic reaction time, just like the Arc Rex. If you don't like that, you can just upscale it off of like guns and stuff, which would give it like high supersonic plus to potentially hypersonic reaction time, depending on like how fast you think the guns are in Horizon Zero Dawn, like how advanced you think weaponry is in Horizon Zero Dawn. And for some higher ends for its speed scaling, if you want to say it can react to the lasers shot by the slaughter spines, then that would give it like FTL, like LS to FTL reaction time. If you want to say it can only like sort of react to the lasers from the slaughter spine, then that would put it in those like relativistic plus to LS ranges in terms of reaction speed and combat speed. So yeah, in terms of speed, it's pretty good. Going on to the hexes for both of them, which I forgot about for the Arc Rex. The Arc Rex doesn't really have any. If you want to like bring the game into the equation, then the Rex would have like some form of regeneration that's fairly decent, which can be amped by eating food, which it won't really have in this video, but And if you want to give it the Rex Tek saddle, then that would give it a ranged attack, as well as some natural armor to keep it protected. In comparison, the Thunderjaw has all sorts of explosives that it can fire, and all sorts of weapons that it can use in fights. So yeah, I would say that in terms of versatility and axes and stuff, the Thunderjaw's got their Tek Rex beat. Even if you want to give the Tek Rex its saddle, it's a Tek saddle. So yeah. So overall, in terms of scaling, who do I think would win? And this one is a lot closer than my last video, but I would say that the Thunderjaw would win more often than not, due to it having better, like, higher end scaling than the Tek Rex does, as well as better weaponry, and being arguably faster in terms of reaction time, and definitely faster in terms of travel speed. I see it as too quick, as well as too strong for the Rex to really do anything. You can also argue it to have higher ends than the Rex, which obviously give it an advantage over the Rex, and would allow it to just maul the Rex in a fight. The Thunderjaw overall is also, like, bigger than the Rex. I couldn't really find any like lifting strength scaling for the Thunderjaw. However, considering its size, I would say it probably has like lifting strength for like your average creature of that size, which obviously would allow it to pick up the Arc Rex, because the Arc Rex is a little bit smaller than it. However, in a shoving match, the Arc Rex, due to having higher lifting strength, would be capable of overpowering the Thunderjaw. However, like, again, it has to grab onto the Thunderjaw to really do that, and because of the fact that the Thunderjaw is in fact the faster creature and has greater weaponry, I would say that even though the Rex could pick up and throw and physically overpower the Thunderjaw, the Thunderjaw's attack potency advantage would be too much for it to really matter, especially if you like want to argue like the higher ends for the Thunderjaw. And if you want to argue some of the like large building ends for it, then like to like make it basically just equal stats, I still think greater speed and greater weaponry and axes outdoes having greater lifting strength in the fight. So yeah. Overall, I think the Thunderjaw would win against the Arc Rex. Now, to be fair, if the Arc Rex was able to figure out that the Thunderjaw had weak points and it was able to attack those weak points, then I do think it could pull the fight off. I don't see the fight as one-sided, and I don't think the Thunderjaw would always win. If both of them enter the fight with knowledge of each other, then I would say that the fight gets a lot more interesting, because the Rex will know what parts of the Thunderjaw to target, what parts not to, but the Thunderjaw also knows that the Rex is aware of its weak points, so it would obviously try to protect them. So it ultimately, like, if that's the situation you want to talk about here, then it ultimately depends on whether or not you think the Rex can get a hold of the Thunderjaw and hit its weak points instead of the armor. If it can't do that, the Thunderjaw would win. If it can, then the Rex would probably pull off the win. It ultimately depends on the Rex's knowledge of the Thunderjaw, is ultimately what I would say determines the Thunderjaw's chances. Obviously, in this what-if situation, both of them are walking into this fight with no knowledge of each other. And because of that, I would say that this only, like, the Thunderjaw benefits from this a lot in this fight. Which overall I would say gives it a pretty big advantage over the Rex. Again, it gets a lot more interesting and a lot more debatable if they have lots of knowledge about each other. If the Rex knows all of the Thunderjaw's weak points, and if the Thunderjaw is aware of the fact that the Rex knows, it gets a lot more interesting, and it gets a lot closer. But in the situation this would actually be, then my money would be on the Thunderjaw. But if you were to disagree with this, I completely understand why. But now we need to address the elephant in the room with the Thunderjaw, that being anti-feats. So, Aloy, which is the name of the player character in Horizon, she uses bows and stuff, and you can harm the creatures in the game, including the Thunderjaw, with those bows. Now, with this in mind, you could argue that the Thunderjaw is way, way weaker than I said it was for this video, and that would obviously give the Arcrex the advantage in the fight. However, I think it's important to note that Aloy is obviously really, really strong, even if she, I also think, so there's a couple things I think is important to note here. Firstly, Aloy is way stronger than a normal human being, which I think should be obvious, seeing as she's a fictional character in a fictional, absurdly unrealistic world and can tank hits from these giant monsters and survive and walk away unharmed. So yeah, firstly, Aloy is way stronger than any real human, and by proxy, if this was a regular, just ordinary bow that she was shooting, it would break in her hands because of how strong she is. So this being just some regular bow and these being regular arrows that she can shoot, I see as quite stupid and a very dumb argument to try and downplay the Horizon verse, personally. I also think it's important to note that for these arrows that are already way stronger than any arrow in real life, for them to actually do any form of damage to things like the Thunderjaw or the Slaughterspine or the Slitherfang or other really big creatures in the verse, that Aloy has to hit weak points and target very specific areas of them to actually deal damage to them. So yeah, I don't really see this as a valid argument to downplay or say that the Thunderjaw is a weak creature, because obviously I just kind of debunked the whole thing. So yeah, Aloy is way stronger than any real human being, and I see her being a regular human being and her using a regular bow is quite stupid and is not a valid argument to downplay anything in the verse, really. Oh, and now that I'm thinking about it, seeing as I mentioned the Slitherfang, they can bust through gigantic rock walls. So yeah, a large building level amount of large rock walls. And I'm not gonna go into Horizon Inverse, but both the Thunderjaw and the Slitherwing are gigantic, very, very strong things within the verse, and are at least somewhat relative in power to each other. So yeah, the Thunder and the Slitherfang did this absurdly easily. So yeah, there are casual large building showings for the larger machine creatures in the Horizon verse. So you could technically argue these guys to have a AP that is a lot higher than large building level, because they have one of them has a very casual large building showing of AP. So yeah, overall, with all of that in mind, I got the Thunderjaw in a fight between a Tek Rex and a Thunderjaw from Horizon. I would say that the Thunderjaw wins. High difficulty, I think it would be difficult for it to win because of the Arcrex's lifting strength advantage. However, I still would say that the weaponry, speed, size, and overall this power of the Thunderjaw would give it an advantage over the Rex in a fight. So yeah, hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.